Hello and welcome to this short video on how to cope with stress as part of a series of videos for this year's Mental Health Awareness Week, and the theme this year is kindness. My name is Hannah and I am one of the assistant psychologists within the IAPT service. Over the next few minutes we're going to explore stress. We're going to look at different stressors that we may be experiencing during the current situation. We're going to look at the different symptoms of stress, so how it affects us both physically and emotionally, and we will also look at some tips and strategies that we can use to be kinder to ourselves and reduce some of our stress levels. Now we're going to look at the physical symptoms and the emotional symptoms of stress. So what happens for us in our bodies and in our minds whenever we're feeling stressed. First of all, we're going to look at the physical symptoms. So whenever we're feeling stressed, our body essentially goes into the fight or flight response. Our body perceives the stressor, so work life or home life or whatever it is, as a danger, and our body wants to protect us from that danger. So lots of things happen physically for us that would make it easy for us to run away from the situation, so that the fight or flight response. So the physical symptoms that happen to keep us safe are things like our heart rate increasing, our breathing rate increasing, our muscles start to feel tense, our immune system starts to decrease, so we might find ourselves feeling like we're getting more colds and flus. So whenever we feel these symptoms, we should start to ask ourselves the question, these are the physical symptoms of stress. Am I feeling stressed at the moment? Along with the physical symptoms comes the emotional symptoms of stress. So we might find ourselves becoming easily agitated, snapping at people, we might find ourselves lacking in motivation, maybe we're not going out with our friends as much, or we're not doing things with our family as much, so maybe we're feeling lonely. That might lead to us feeling a little bit low in ourselves, and we also might be feeling a little bit more nervous and on edge than usual. So it's important that we catch both these physical and emotional symptoms early on, so that we're not having them on a long-term basis, so that they don't lead to more serious physical or mental health problems down the line. Now we're going to use an analogy for stress called the stress bucket technique. We use this a lot in the IAPT service as a visual aid to help us visualise how much stress we have going on for us at the time. So if you picture that you have a bucket and different stressors drip into the bucket, like water, so to speak. So these different droplets could be anything that's going on in your life at the time that's causing you stress. So it could be relationship difficulties, it could be money difficulties, could be the current situation with the lockdown, it could be relationships with people at work, it can also be bigger lifestyle changes, for example moving house or moving jobs. So if you imagine all of these things are dripping into the stress bucket on a constant basis, we can't control what is dripping into our stress bucket, and eventually if the water or the stress has no way to get out, the bucket will fill up and fill up and fill up, and eventually it will overflow. As I said, we don't have any control over what's dripping into the bucket, but if our bucket is filling up, what we can do is poke holes in the bottom of the bucket. These holes can be anything that helps you release your stress. It could be going for a walk, it could be reading a book, it could be doing breathing exercises. So whenever we're feeling stressed, we have to remember that most of the time we're not going to be in control of what's dripping into the bucket, but what we are in control of is how we can poke holes in the bottom of the bucket. If for a second, if you can just visualize your stress bucket, if you visualize what's dripping into your stress bucket, and then I want you to think about how do you poke holes in your stress bucket. For the next few minutes, we're going to talk about some tips or practical things that we can do to hopefully reduce our stress levels. So what can we be doing on a daily basis to let some of the water out of that stress bucket. So most of these things are very simple. You will have heard of them a million times before, but whenever we're feeling stressed, these are the first things to slip away, and usually these things will have a knock-on effect on creating more stress. So it's important that whenever we're feeling stressed, we have a look at our daily lives and our daily routines and make sure that everything that we're doing isn't adding to our stress levels. So the first thing that we can look at is making sure that we're having a balanced diet. Especially in this strange time where our routine might have changed. We need to make sure that we're getting enough energy into our bodies to deal with the daily stressors. We also need to make sure that we're drinking enough water and that we're making sure that we're hydrated. That leads us on to our next thing, which is making sure that we keep an eye on our caffeine intake. We know that caffeine can increase our heart rate and in turn make us feel anxious and on edge, which can add to our stress levels. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, it's important that you maybe stop your caffeine intake at lunchtime, because it takes about 6 to 8 hours before caffeine is flushed through your system. So we don't want to be having caffeine in the second part of the day, so that it might impact on our sleep. Because then if we're not getting enough sleep, we're going to feel tired the following few days, and that might also have an impact on our stress levels. If we enjoy having a cup of tea or coffee in the evening or as part of our nighttime routine, it might be thinking about alternative decaf options, and there's lots of options in the supermarkets at the moment. So it's just having to think about what you can swap to, and make sure that we're looking out for hidden caffeine in things such as green tea and chocolate. Another thing that we can be doing, especially in the current situation, is making sure that we're staying connected. That might be with family members, with friends, with work colleagues, and we can do this through a variety of mediums. There's lots of online programs such as Skype, Zoom, FaceTime. We could also maybe do some of our hobbies or our daily activities virtually as well. There's lots of online quizzes, online book clubs and online film clubs. So just have a look and make sure that we're spending a little bit of time every single day that connects us with other people. The next thing that we can keep an eye on is our media influence. We know that watching or reading things that might trigger a anxiety response is going to add to our stress levels. So if we are constantly scrolling through the news or constantly turning on the television to watch the news and we feel anxious afterwards, it might be good to limit the amount of media influence that we're having each day. So say to yourself, I'll only watch the 6 o'clock news for half an hour and that'll be my entire media for the day. It's also important to make sure that we're reading things from reputable media sources. So that would be from the news or the World Health Organization, to remember not to believe everything that we're reading from other sources. Another thing that we can do to reduce some of the stress in our everyday life is to make sure that we find time every single day for a pleasurable activity, something that makes us feel good, that we look forward to, that we enjoy. So this could be any number of things. It could be reading your favourite book or watching your favourite television programme. It could be having a relaxing bath. Whatever it is that you look forward to each day, and try and build it in at least once every single day, so that we have something to look forward to. And that leads us on to another thing that we can be doing in specifically in the current situation, and that's making sure that we have routine and structure within our day. We know that some people are continuing on with work and they're continuing on with their usual routine and structure, but for a lot of us, we're at home and our routine and structure has had quite a few changes. So we can build our day around what time we get up, what time we have our meals, what time we go to bed, and we can schedule in our time to relax, our time to work, our time to stay connected with other people, or exercise. And it might be a good idea to write up a timetable and fill all these things in black and white. And by the time you fill in all of your meal times, your relaxing time, your exercise time, your day will have filled up. So it's important to try and stick to routine and structure as much as possible. Make sure that we're continuing on with our usual time that we get up in the morning and our usual time that we go to bed in the evening. The last tip that we're going to talk about today that can reduce some of our stress levels is making sure that we do something every single day that gives us a sense of achievement. This could be anything from some housework, some decorating or DIY around the house, maybe a little bit of gardening, a work task. It could be cooking or baking a new recipe, it could be following a new exercise routine, or it could be doing an admin task around the house like paying a bill. Regardless of how small or big it is, make sure that we've done something every day that when we go to bed in the evening, we can ask ourselves, what did I tick off my to-do list today? And that will give us a sense of achievement every single day. So just to summarise, in this quick session we've looked at what is stress and when it occurs, we've looked at the physical and the emotional symptoms of stress, and we've looked at lots of tips that we can be doing to try and reduce some of our stress or reduce some of that water in the stress bucket. A final and important point to make with regards to stress management techniques is to not overwhelm ourselves. So we don't want to, after this video, try and put in all of these tips that I have spoken about today. It might be a good idea to think about one thing that you think will have an impact for you. Thank you for listening to this quick video on stress management techniques.